Presenting to you iTALK 2nd edition 2023, jointly organized by the Department of Commerce, MAHE-Manipal and IBAT. IBAT isn't just a typical think tank. It's a dynamic force that concludes extensive research and also engages in advocacy on subjects spanning the realms of management, both in general and its specific aspects like the social policy, economics, geopolitics, technology, and culture. This remarkable organization is dedicated to addressing the issues that have substantial importance and impact in our society today, both at home in India and also in the global arena. Allow me to introduce to you all the host, Department of Commerce, MAHE-Manipal. Department of Commerce is a dynamic hub of knowledge and expertise where academic rigor meets real-world applications. It also is leading in shaping future leaders of commerce and industry. Department of Commerce Manipal Academy of Higher Education has courses to offer in BBA, BCom, MSc, MCom, MA, and PhD in Logistics and Supply Chain Management. A brief about the Department of Commerce. This morning, we've gathered here to introduce to you iTALK, a project that springs from the very core of IBAT's predominant mission. iTALK is a community-driven effort aimed at bringing IBAT's enlightenment ideas to the hearts and minds of the local communities throughout India. It's about sharing impactful ideas, sparkling meaningful discussions, and also creating a wave of positive change. We hope that you find today's event as engaging, thought-provoking, and inspiring as it is always. As we explore the potential of iTALK, let us invite you all into this brightening and enlightening journey. We welcome you all.
The organizing committee this year has come up with a very diverse kind of setup of speakers, where we have speakers coming from different backgrounds who are going to enlighten their experiences, their learnings to all of you. And it is definitely going to be a very informative, entertaining, and something which will give you a chance to think about certain things which you may probably have never thought about. Many times in our routine life, we focus on our disciplines, what we have come to study for, and we ignore certain areas which probably would interest us and would definitely make us a better or holistic personality. But we typically ignore those topics, and we focus morely on the discipline. We start working in silos. So typically this particular kind of activity we are actually organizing to break this silo so that people work on interdisciplinary areas. And that is something which even the National Education Policy talks about, and even MAHE advocates it to a large extent. So keeping that in mind, Department of Commerce and IBAT partnered in organizing this activity. And we have this wonderful location where we are organizing it. I am sure you will enjoy the entire show.
In the interest of the upcoming students, they should know what is going on around. They should know which career they should select and all that. And for that purpose, they should have first-hand information from this HU's mouth. So it is not online program, it is offline program, 1:1, and therefore, if you listen to those people who are outside in their profession, who are outside in their activities and all that, and who have excelled in almost all the fields, and that's why we have selected the speakers from different fields. So we got professors, we got doctors, medicine, and education academicians, and all that.
I request Dr. Sandeep Shenoy, CA Rajaram Shetty, Dr. K. Dasharath to join us as well to do the honors. Thank you. I request all speakers, organizing committee members, and curators to come forward for a group photograph. All the speakers, organizing committee members, curators, kindly come forward for a group photograph.
So Dr. Joshi talked to us about history, something that happened 5,000 years ago. Our next speaker is also going to talk to us about history, but a different kind of history, something very recent. Our next speaker is Dr. Rahul Magazine. He is a distinguished professor in the Department of Respiratory Medicine. With a passion for education, he imparts knowledge to both MBBS and MD students. His expertise doesn't stop at teaching. He actively guides students, ensuring they receive the best mentorship during their academic journey. His commitment to medical education extends beyond the classroom. He plays a pivotal role at MAHE Simulation Center, where he is deeply involved in its programs. He is a certified instructor for the American Heart Association in both basic life support and advanced cardiac life support. He is an experienced researcher with more than 70 research papers to his credit, and also has an endoscopic maneuver named after him. He penned the book, "And the Valley Remains Silent, a Saga of Forsaken Aboriginals," which sheds light on the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of the refugees from Kashmir. As we welcome him to the stage, we are not only introducing a medical professional, but also a compassionate educator and a storyteller. Please join us in welcoming Dr. Rahul Magazine.
Thank you, Vittalji, for that introduction. There's a small part which was missed in that introduction, and that is something which I did not opt for or work for. It was, you can say, gifted to me in 1990, and that is that I am a refugee from Kashmir. It all started in 1990 when we had to leave our ancestral home, which had 18 rooms in it, 3-storied ancestral home, many attics. And overnight we were in Jammu, where we stayed in a single room without a kitchen or a toilet. So how we managed without that, I leave it to your imagination. So it's been 33 years and I have not gone back to Kashmir. Not that I cannot go, it's relatively okay now, but then I do get this question asked, because around 1.5 crore people have gone to Kashmir recently as tourists. So they ask me, why don't you go back? So my answer is, you can go back, you can go and enjoy that place as tourists, but how can I, a native, an aboriginal, go as a tourist to my own homeland? So now you must have understood the context, in which this book must have been written. So I would share with you why I wrote this book and what the book is really about. So it all started, there was a very interesting incident which happened. In 2019, I went to Kochi to attend a conference, and there is I don't know how many of you know, there's Asia's oldest synagogue there called Pardesi Synagogue. So I have seen all places of worship, mosques, churches, temples, but I've never been to a synagogue. So I thought I'll go there and, see the place. So as I went, I was walking through the lane, which was lined by, handicraft shops, which led up to the road led up to the synagogue. I could hear Kashmiri being spoken. My mother tongue is Kashmiri. So I could hear Kashmiri being spoken. So when I looked around, I could recognize these were Kashmiri boys, shopkeepers, who were actually 80% of the shops in that area. It's a Jewish town, and very interestingly, there's no Jew left there. They're all moved out. Some have gone to UK, US, Israel and all. But This all 80% of these shops are lined by Kashmiri boys. So as I was approaching the synagogue, on the right hand side there was a shop, a handicraft shop. So I saw a young lad there, 25 years old. So I approached him and I started talking to him in Kashmiri. So when you talk in your native language, there's immediately, there's a bonding. So I never met him before, so we started talking about, mundane things, how is business. So he told me many things about the business there. And as the conversation was going on, suddenly this young boy blurted out and said, you left Kashmir, you people left Kashmir because you left Kashmir at the behest of the then Governor Jagmohan, so that we could be targeted by the army later. So I was taken aback. I was not totally surprised because this is being told for last 3 decades. But what surprised me in this case was the conviction with which this young boy said those words. He really believed in what he said. He was born probably in 94, 95. We were forced to leave in 1990. So he was not witness to the events what happened. So then how did he get the information? Of course, it was passed on to him. And that's how, narratives can be passed on. And as Sir had just said, you look at a tree, one person will have one perspective, another person will have another perspective. Some will be false, some will be true. And some would be, probably the truth lies somewhere in between. So there and then I decided, I need to document the stories of these people, their trials, their sufferings. And that was the trigger for writing this book. So what is the book all about? So when I started off, it was to document their stories. COVID had happened, there was a lockdown. So I thought, okay, I have time, these guys have time. So our people are spread all around the world. They are in top positions, they are top doctors in US. One of our person was advisor to the Bush administration, Mr. Kashkari. So I contacted many of these people in US, in India, all over India also were spread out. So I took their stories, weaved them into a narrative and put them in order of time to create a story. So as I started this journey of writing this book, it was basically to tell about their sufferings and their trials. But as I wrote, I realized one important thing was not being told about their story, and even I had kind of underplayed it, was the fact, the resilience of these people despite the hardships they faced. So I'll share you, how through anecdote. So as I was researching for this story, this book, so I got one story where one clerk who was working in Srinagar, he had a family of 6 people to support, elderly mother, 3 children, wife. So he was already on a meager salary, and circumstances forced him to leave behind everything he had and come to Jammu. Unlike us who had a room, of course there was no toilet, but he was forced to live in a tent accommodation in a camp. And conditions there were horrid. We come from a temperate climate, we are not used to the tropical climate of the subcontinent. So it was very difficult, it was horrid conditions, sanitation was bad, snake bites, all those things. On top of it, his mother got sick, so he had to get some money and put a pacemaker for him. Now that's not what I want to tell. What I want to tell is, this guy comes to my father-in-law, who is also a refugee but living in a rented accommodation, a relatively decent, maybe 1 or 2 rooms. And this guy who is living in penury tells my father-in-law, see, my son is studying in a government school and the quality of teaching there is not good. So can you suggest some private tutor? My father-in-law was shocked. Here is a man who can't, it's difficult for him to, make 2 ends meet, and here he is bothered about giving private tuition to his kid. And do you know what, after 30 years, what that boy is doing? His son, that tent fellow's son, He did his BTech, did his MTech, and he is a top management person in one of the multinational companies in Bombay. So that was one story. So this made me realize, more than the sufferings and the trials of these people, we should talk more about the resilience. And I think that is an inspiration for the younger generation. The other story is very close at hand. I was attending one talk in geopolitics here in Manipal, and I was introduced to a young Kashmiri lad whose entire family, all relatives were massacred in one of the massacres there. And he grew up in an orphanage. This guy did not pick up gun to take revenge for what had happened to him. Instead, he came here, did his masters. I don't know where he's gone now, but what these two stories tell us is that even though the persecutors of these people wanted to annihilate them, but these guys survived. They not only survived, they thrived. And the fact that they are thriving is a slap on the face of those terrorists. And what makes me proud of these people is that despite such persecution and losing homes, their farms, their businesses, they never took to violence. It's a common myth, actually these people busted that myth that terrorism is a consequence of persecution. These people never took to violence as a response to persecution. Rather, they chose education as a response to the persecution they were facing, resulting in the fact that today they are thriving in this country. And for choosing the pen and shunning the gun, I am really proud of these people. Thank you so much.
Might I request Dr. Sandeep Shenoy to please give the memento to our last speaker. It is so serendipitous that our first speaker talked about perspective and context from quoting the Gita, and the next speaker had to talk about history from the same perspective and context. See, history is always written by the aggressors. Today we are lucky enough to have a book available to us where the author of the book is from the receiving end of something in history. I will highly recommend this book to all the youngsters. Please take a copy and try to learn as much as possible, because we need to learn what has happened. We should never forget what has happened, but we need to forgive at the same time. So kindly, if you can, please, the book is available outside.